I haven't been so happy to see someone lose their humanoid V-card since I did. Also to a femme fatale when I was 50-something. Today we're talking about Deep Space Nine Season 5, Episode 17, A Simple Investigation. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. I'm very excited to be back here with you. I know we're a day late, and I apologize for that, but I was in Chicago seeing the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil musical. Its tryout before Broadway. It was really good. It was fun. But it meant I was not here in the basement where we do these things. So I'm back. I'm a little jet-lagged. Not from, just sleepiness, whatever. I'll tell you about the hotel there. I went to the weirdest hotel.
Okay.
It's good. It's like Citizen M Hotel. It's basically like a drunk WeWork.
Oh, okay.
And I
know Citizen M because I stayed at one in Miami.
It is the weirdest.
It's weird.
It's really, call me old-fashioned. Which I am, and perhaps I'm showing my age, but I'm okay if the bathroom door is a door and not frosted glass.
Yeah.
I was really glad I was there by myself. Anyway, so that's what happened. Mike, how has your week been? What have you been doing?
Well, we're still, deep into Puppy Town, but I'll say that we've crossed the first month threshold, and so things are... There's a routine establishing. It's a new routine for me. I get up so much earlier than I ever did before. But things are good. We had a great watch along last night. Everybody was very flexible, so it was nice. We pushed everything back a day. We had this mysterious Anne and Walter join the fray, and Walter...
Oh, the mysterious Walter!
Mysterious Walter felt that the episode started slow, so he pieced out. And man, are we thankful, because... We've all watched an awkward sex scene with our mom before, but I've never had to be on a live stream watching an awkward sex stream with somebody watching it with their mom, and so I was glad to avoid that. We had a stern talking to at our watch along, Keith. You'd be very proud. I wanted to tell you because everybody was coming in hot with their opinions early. And I just wanted to table set that, listen, I'm coming in fresh and I'm giving everything the benefit of the doubt. I don't want your negative Nancy energy at the top.
Yes. Let Mike make his own choices.
And Keith, interestingly, I think I ended up, true to my word, feeling more positively than the energy that had come into the live stream. So, curious to chat through this with you. Lots to unpack. I have lots of movies and properties that I feel were analogous as far as tone and genre and such. So we'll get into all of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're gonna feel similarly about this episode.
This is also not the name of the episode.
Let us talk about last week's episode, Dr. Bashir, I presume. Because I'm cramming, I didn't have time to edit stuff down, so I'm just gonna read fast. And we're just gonna have basically unedited opinions from you guys here. Mike, if folks would like me to read their unedited opinions, how would they do so?
Easiest ways possible, Keith. First, you could be a patron over at patreon.com/K&M and at any level, and that gets you free reads here of your opinions. You could also compliment us. Complimenting us will get you read with no financial commitment.
That's right.
Also, you could leave us a super tip here on YouTube. I think it's still a thing. Google is killing products left and right, and also losing antitrust lawsuits.
Yeah.
But either way, as long as the button's still there, you can send us a tip and we'll read your thoughts.
Or say something offensive enough that it makes me angry, and then I'll read it. Or leave a comment
on the podcast version of the show, and Keith will somehow
Where does one do that?
I guess in a review. I don't know.
Leave a please, podcast listeners. I know you're out there. Do us a huge favor and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts because it helps a lot more people find us. All right, so Dr. Bashir, I presume last week's episode. Here are your thoughts. First up, Joshua Cronin says, I love this episode. The Rom-Lita romance is so cute to me. I adore it. I was so happy they got together. and Bashir. Wow, as a kid, I was so shocked, but it all seemed to click to me about the things in the character's past. It seemed so real. And I love that they all accepted him for it. And I say a lot, great storytelling. Give this a solid 95 self-sealing stem bolts. Brian from Video Game Drive-By, subscribe to Brian's YouTube channel, begins the discussion, why is Deep Space Nine so good at daddy issues?
Yeah.
And there's a great discussion on there. Go and check it out. Mike and I have talked about it ad nauseum, but I think there's a lot of, almost exclusively a male writing team. So that's what they're going to focus on, but they're smart, sensitive people who have worked through their daddy issues or are working through it in the writing of the show. Harry Pothead comes in with 90 stem bolts. This is a great episode. It took all the scattered little factoids that never coalesced into a character and forced it into being. The prison sentence doesn't bug me. Star Trek has always been against genetic tinkering and AI. It's just part of the sauce. I like seeing Robert Picardo and wish he could have appeared more often. Agreed. All the guest stars are doing exactly what the script is asking for. This episode does the funny as well as it does the drama. Also weighs in, I honestly think the reason Lita is waiting for Rom to make the first move, as we talked about last episode, is to diminish the appearance of being the woman Quark just said she was. Slut shaming has always been a thing, and women have always had to be defensive against it, even in a future where we're supposed to believe all these things have been taken care of. But it was originally conceived of by a raging sexist, so what are you gonna do? Fair. Fair indeed. Hibernation Pod says, I like the family episodes for some odd reason, despite never having a father figure in my life. Maybe the Next Generation episode after Best of Both Worlds was closer to home for me, but I was looking, episode Family, great episode, but I was looking forward to this one, having heard your stories a little bit. I never missed having a dad in my life, nor have I ever felt I needed one, but it sure makes for some interesting discussion. This episode fits into a larger narrative strangely, but I won't get into it. Thank you. 80 self-sealing stem bolts. Mysterious Anne comes in. Big fan of The Secret of Nim. It was part of my family's vast bootleg VHS library. I was very fortunate an 80s, 90s kid in that way.
Keith, it's available to you on the Plex currently.
Oh, yes. I skimmed through the Hobbit movie last night. Yeah, there's us 80s, 90s kids. You sort of fall into the whether you're the lucky kid or the unlucky kid based on whether or not your dad or mom paid for HBO or Showtime and then created a VHS library of things. We couldn't get cable where I was, but I had a buddy, Jason Reichert, who his dad had this enormous library of movies that he taped onto VHS, including possibly some of the Emmanuel movies that we watched at 2 o'clock in the morning many, many times.
Yeah, my dad eventually, so we didn't for a long time. Then my dad eventually, we had a cousin, and he sold hot boxes. Do you remember what hot boxes were?
Oh, where you could like steal cable?
Yeah, they basically were like flashed firmware cable boxes
like
that
decoded, yeah,
that could get the pay for channels, which was cool until my mom and him just realized that included all of the channels, and there was no way this did not have built-in filters
parental controls.
So we had to get rid of the hot box because there's when you had
box is a little too hot.
It was very hot, and we had 2 boys in the family, so. We figured that out right quick. So
they just noticed because you were like walking around dehydrated and exhausted.
But to our credit, to my brother and I's credit, I will say, maybe naivety, to be honest. Instead of recording that stuff, right, onto the VHSs for safekeeping, we ended up recording. I'll never forget. We had a VHS of a ton of cable stuff. We had a bunch of kids stuff, so we had, remember, American Tail and a bunch of movies we got off the HBO, but also Total Recall we recorded off there. What was the other one we used to watch all the time? Oh, all the Rambos. Like we started getting a collection of rated R movies. So
yeah. Oh yeah. No, that Total Recall. Those of us of a certain age and a certain
You know what's better than
sexual identity.
Two boobies,
remember that
Keith?
movie.
You know what's better than two boobies? More than two boobies.
Buy two, get one free. All right, so Mysterious Anne, who now regrets having brought that up, continues about the Secret of Nim. I watched it with some of my Trekkie friends when I was in middle school, and we all screamed when the credits rolled and we saw Will Wheaton. Of course, Wesley Crusher. Then we all had to watch it again to hear his voice. So she weighs in on Lita, refusing to make the first move.
This is a good point.
And she says, this was my headcanon. Lita knows Rom pretty well, and also knows his relationship with Quark. I think she doesn't want to be like Quark to him, a much stronger personality that he can just defer to. She may know that if Rom doesn't have a strong, particularly sense of self, that could make him a real bummer of a partner. Insecure, resentful, jealous, etc. She wants to make sure he's secure enough and can be an equal to her in the relationship so he can be decisive, confident, and be able to articulate what he wants. She saw that strong self-concept and confidence in him as a union organizer, so she knows it's in there. But now she's testing him to see if she can have that strength in his relationship with her too. If this is what the writers had in mind, they should have made it way more clear. That's such good headcanon.
Yeah, I'm taking it.
I think that might be giving the writers too much credit, but my goodness, that's so smart. But you can do that. But I do think it fits. Lita is clearly choosing not to make this move. It's obvious she wants and needs Rom to do, but that she's not going to be convinced to settle for less from him. She holds out to see if he can be the more assertive partner she needs him to be. I'm a big Lita fan. I'm sometimes grossed out by the way other characters treat her. Really, Zimmerman move in together?
Yeah,
but I'm not concerned about it. Yeah, but I think this is the important part. But I'm not concerned about her. She's written and performed with lots of agency and has a strong sense of self. That's a really good point, and I think that does address what my concerns with Lita. You know, and I think that is sort of exactly right. So the casting director of Deep Space Nine was really, really good. I think this episode is some of his best work. Bashir's parents are so real. I believe them, and I believe everything they say and do, including let's come up with a plan, and his dad's bit of jovial bluster at the end as he goes to the prison. Interesting fact, the actress who played Bashir's mom was an anthropology professor who'd never done any screen acting before. The Deep Space Nine casting director saw her in a community theater production and invited her to audition for the part, which is crazy. And every community theater I've ever been to has had the delusion that, like, we're so good, they're going to take us to Broadway, or someone's going to... Guess what? It actually happened to this actress. So cool. She continues, her monologue gets me every time and always has, but to an even greater extent since we became parents. She conveys so much so well about the anxieties of being a parent, the questions that can't ever be answered but also don't go away. Like you guys, I appreciate that Deep Space Nine surfaces ethically complex issues and doesn't resolve them. It's a show that doesn't underestimate the capacity of the audience to do their own struggling with difficult things. 92 self-sealing stem bolts. Brilliant as always, Anne. YouTube viewer says, don't let Keith tell you otherwise, Mike. That was your best musical interlude ever. Yikes. Oh, right. Yeah, Ziggy with it. I doubt you two would like Married with Children. Yeah, you're probably right.
No, I love Married with Children, turns out.
Oh, well, probably you two just meant me. You will like this. Robert Picardo starring on Golden Girls. He plays a sassy doctor with a poor bedside manner. He might be typecast. I should definitely watch that. I love this. Supposedly, Robert won his Voyager audition by ad-libbing, I'm a doctor, not a light bulb. Hilarious. You talked about cheating a lot. I hate to go into the current events, but I am perpetually mad at the IOC's uneven application of their anti-cheating rules, appropriate to the Olympics. That was disillusioning when I first found out that it gets worse every year. No, agreed. Quark and Garrick's color outlets get better every season. Ferengi fashion isn't about color coordinating fashion, it's about flexing wealth by showing excess materials. It's a really good point.
Very good.
It is not very enlightened that Star Trek assumes that women can't make the first move. Normally, I'd complain, but if Lita did ask Rom out early, we wouldn't have had a delightful rom-com in this episode. I will point out that Quark does not complain when women show interest in him, and this is a surefire way to put him on his back foot in a business deal because he falls for it every time a female client flirts with him. Yeah. Also pointing out, Rom angling his ears to eavesdrop isn't new to Deep Space Nine. Quark has done it a couple of times already. And Morn is quite a chatterbox off-screen. That's a great running joke. The actor as Bashir's father is only 13 years older than him. I think I mentioned that. But yeah, you would call it bad casting. But I like to think that in the Star Trek universe, 55 is the new 35. Oh man, could I have that now? Anyway, if I woke up tomorrow in the Star Trek universe, I'm taking the first flight to Bajor. The first flight to Bajor. Beautiful Bajoran women seem to have a thing for nerdy guys with underwhelming physiques. Yes, we'll take the same flight. Though maybe Lita is atypical. I won't get into spoilers for Kira's future romantic subplots, but she is very different from Lita. Yes, I find it interesting that Jake dates multiple Bajoran girls, and they never bring up that he is the emissary's son. That's a very good point. The only man who could ever reach me is the son of a preacher man. I used to have a great attention span as a kid. I could read a 300-page novel in 2 days back then. Now I can barely read 20 pages without pulling up a YouTube video. Yeah. Yes, 2 years in a minimum security Federation prison is cake. Their prisons are probably a lot cushier than our lives now in 2024. I imagine that's true for many people. Imagine a lot of parents would bite the bullet and give their kids a boost. We get to meet a lot of other genetically modified people in future episodes, and they revisit some of the same moral issues. Anyway, this episode isn't a masterpiece, but we had a lot of serious episodes in a row, so it's good to get a light rom-com here. 82 out of 100. Yeah, I think you're... Yeah, I mean, think about our society today, and maybe this is sort of what happened in canon, and they addressed it. But one of we deal with wealth and opportunity and income inequality right now. I think the minute it's possible to do, there will also be genetic inequality, and that's just going to continue to push it further and further because we humans are, humans. All right, JD says the animated Hobbit is still great. Just watched a couple of months ago. The Secrets of Nim is great too. Said I think I used omnisexual for Garrick, and JD says Garrick should be pansexual. Dang man, we never get enough love. Yeah, you're 100% right. I think I was searching for pansexual and lost it, but yeah, love to the pansexual community right here. He says, LOL, Bad Blood is a Klingon song. Gotta work on that. That's a good parody. Believe me, if I ever thought one of you had crossed the line in terms of our allyship or lack of some, you'd be getting a private message from me that would start with, hey, what did you mean? Thank you for that. Because I'm willing to give you a chance before I assume malicious intent. Progressive supremacist, gotta work that into a book. Yeah, and I think somebody said it should be a t-shirt. I don't know, maybe that's our first merch. Progressive supremacist is our first merch. Jesus, Mike did that robot Schwarzenegger voice and got my dog's attention. Ugh, it's horrible. Ugh, still shuddering. It was Happy Birthday Elizabeth Taylor, and the full thing is on YouTube. I'll post the link separately. I want to see, which I just saw, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the musical. Yeah, it's great. I think you would love it. The EMH appears in this episode for a minute, and Zimmerman was in at least 2 episodes of Voyager. I heard that Picardo was one of the best to work with. Yeah, I did get that sense. We call talking about Quark's coat, he says we call that coat Quark's trans awareness coat. Coke. I could use a trans awareness Coke right now. Anyway, one theory, everybody is weighing in on Lita, which is great. One theory I have about Lita and it will make more sense going forward, is that she maintains her Bajoranness while allowing for some small leeway of Ferengi sexism. Like she's not being subservient, but she gets that how her guy was raised, very intentionally in this way, so she is amenable to work with that rather than fight against it. Y'all should go ahead with Prodigy Disco, because that would lead to the new Starfleet Academy series. Oh my god. At some point, yes. So Andy Dick's version we see of on Voyager is actually the EMH Mark III, not the LMH. And as of 2400 history, we have never seen an official LMH, long-term medical hologram.
Oh, you're flickering.
Oh, I just got so dark. What happened?
I don't know. Let's see if we can... Did I hit something by accident? Yes, I might have.
Oh,
hold please. You should be returning. You should be returning.
Come back. Beam me back in. So moving forward, JD says, around 57 minutes, I like what Mike is doing. He's not paying attention to anything. Did he get a... well, I was like, what is Mike doing? He's not paying attention to anything. Did he get a work email or something? No! He's giving Keith a body upgrade. Come on. Keith, you don't know how the rest of us feel about Mike being shirtless. Maybe we should put it to a vote. Oh, I think we have one vote for shirtless Mike.
Yeah, no.
Come on, Mike, there's got to be a Patreon tier for shirtless Mike.
I mean, old shirtless Mike. Maybe circa when I was 34, when we got ripped up. But until now, he's dad bod Mike these days. Which there's nothing wrong with that.
But maybe that's the thing.
Yeah,
maybe cool. It didn't say ripped Mike. It said
you know, it'd be hard to tell because I don't look in the mirror. I get in the shower and I turn the other way.
I have too much shame to look in the mirror.
It's true, man.
Me too. The only time I ever see myself is right now on the screen, and I am, trust me, the angles
properly
are very
cropped.
Properly cropped, properly lit, properly angled. That's why I hated the damn hotel. It's like this weird little sex cube. Yeah. And I'm like, that's weird. I can see myself. I don't like it. Anyway. Lastly, JD says, I think what becomes difficult about the political issue of partisanship is that there are a great many subjects I can disagree with someone on and still have a wonderful friendship. It's when they start agreeing or crossing the line into saying things that literally threaten either me or people I love. If you say I need to be hospitalized, rehabilitated, fixed, or killed because I'm dating a man or a trans person, or anyone that doesn't fit your box, well, guess what? I don't care if we agree on taxes. You think me and my people should die. F off. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's... There is a great... I'll just take a brief second of our time on this, Keith. It is something that I'm dealing with in my life. Or not my life so much as just sort of my dealing of my own self and my morals and my intellect, because I often like to think of myself as sort of trying to have a discussion in the middle, right? But to JD's point, a lot of really important issues that are vital to people's lives, safety, identity, exist on the more quote-unquote left, or more, left or right of center issues, right? And so in trying to have centrist conversations, you have to, like you do on a test, right? Toss out the outliers, right? But you can't do that when it has to do with people's well-being and livelihood and freedoms and independence. And so that challenges my way of thinking often. Not that I don't support those things, I obviously do, but I have to get off my horse of let's talk in the middle and be rational, when sometimes you can't. You have to.
Well, and I think you're exactly. I think what both you and JD are saying is that there are certain topics that we can agree to disagree on, right? Tax policy, the size of government, something like that. Totally fair points on both sides. We're both trying to get to the same thing and arguing that a different way to do it is the better way. And that's operating in good faith, and that's fair. And whether or not I think trickle-down economics is nonsense, you can make a good faith argument that, it could work this way, or whatever it is. And so, if we're having a Bob Dole debate, right, then okay, right, I can respect your operating in good faith. You have a different point of view. You have a different way to accomplish the same thing. Great. I can 100% Like, go for a beer and be friends. However, when you're talking about civil rights and freedom, or taking away rights and freedoms from other people, I'm sorry, we can't agree to disagree on bigotry. We can't agree to disagree on taking away the freedoms away from people, and whether it's I can't agree to disagree with George Wallace if we're in the 60s, right? No. I'm not going to have a beer with you. And then you can extrapolate that to 10,000 other marginalized communities. And so there's the practical, and then there's the moral, and then there's the justice thing. And I think that there really needs to be lines there, at least there are for me, about like where we disagree, but we're operating in good faith, to we're just dealing with bigotry, and that's not okay. So lastly, JD says, I think what becomes difficult about... No, he just said that. And that's part of what is hard for us in these groups. And I'm not necessarily speaking for other minorities, but in my experience, most of them say similar things, even in the autistic community. The way people act like we need to be fixed is so insulting and mind-numbingly angering. Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, he says, the cold open should have been Keith saying, I hope I am aging gracefully into my weird old perv era. Yeah. After all of that heady stuff. The acting overall in this episode is fantastic. I love the story, but to me, that resolution is weak. 90 self-sealing stem bolts. I stuck around because I liked the long one. That's why I left a long one. Thank you, Mike. Oh, did you do something at the end? I don't know.
Yes, because the tag was exactly what he asked for. It was you saying, I hope I'm aging into my old perv phase.
Oh, great. Great. It's going to be somebody's ringtone. All right. That is
wait till the end of this episode. I got a treat for you.
Oh, I need to know when you're recording before I say things. All right, let us now finally talk about this week's episode, a simple investigation. If you're like, oh my god, it took them this long to get here, I didn't want to lose the last half hour of my life. Well, we have chapters, both in the podcast version and here on YouTube, so you can jump right to here. So a simple investigation aired on March 31st, 1997. We had a few weeks off, and we are back. The top song, unfortunately, I'm so sad to say, we're no longer Spice Girls, so we do not get a reprise of this, and we're going to get a song that, I listened to it, Mike, you shouldn't attempt. It's Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, Puff Daddy, featuring Maze, Don't Even Try.
Reverb off.
Reverb off, sir. Reverb off. Speaking of problematic these days, the top movie, however, the instant classic Liar Liar.
Okay.
And you want to know what's
Jim Carrey's foray into slightly. If you juxtapose it to the Ace Venturas, I guess this was his turn into the drama. Although then when he would go into Eternal Sunshine, you're like, oh, this guy actually is.
Most comedians can, because they're all dark and twisty and broken inside, like us. Yeah. So interestingly, for Mike and I and nobody else, we have now crossed into when The Practice started airing.
Wow.
So,
I have such a treat coming up for you in a few weeks. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited.
I'm preparing something I'm not even telling you about, but it's a surprise and it's great.
All right. Well, let us go to the TV ratings. Maybe you'll see.
I didn't pull it up.
Oh, but it might be The Practice.
Talk about something quickly as I pull up. What's the date on this bad boy?
March 31st, 1997.
Okay, I got it. Go. Okay, Keith, on television, we had Relativity, which was a show on ABC. That was a thing. Karen and her sisters.
Is that an adaptation of the movie?
Maybe. No, it's an hour drama. The NCAA basketball championship was on. Arizona defeated Kentucky 84-79 in overtime. Married with Children was Birthday Boy Toy. A show called Pauly was on Fox.
Oh, Pauly Shore's show. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, yeah. And Keith, Seventh Heaven, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Ooh, another great series.
Airing on the WB. And then outside of that, I'm looking for the practice, and I'm not seeing it because it was probably not on Monday.
It was on Tuesday. It was on Tuesdays. But yeah, the next night, part 5, season 1, episode 5 aired on the practice. So go back and check out Out of Practice podcast. You can listen to Keith and Mike struggle bus their way through trying to figure out how to do this.
But Keith, this was the 3rd episode of Buffy. Buffy had just begun its run.
That's crazy. You know, if we ever are immortal,
have you ever gone back to Buffy? Have you Did you watch Buffy?
Yeah. I haven't watched it maybe in 10 years, but I didn't watch it when it first came out, so I discovered it sort of similar to Deep Space Nine, actually, where I was watching it on my iPod on the train going to work, and got really sucked into that world. Yeah,
so Buffy for me, I initially first picked it up in 99 2000 because my dad had just passed away, was sick, was really sick. He was in the hospital a bunch, and I met this girl, her name was Summer, and we were doing a play together. And we were kind of, you know, like you do with the showmance thing. But what started as sort of like a romantic relationship, or like, I guess romance is not exact. It was more of an Odo relationship. It was more of an intimate gooing relationship. But I would go over her house because I just didn't want to be at my house because my house kind of sucked at the time. And she was a huge Buffy fan. So what started as a gooing relationship became me just going over there, smoking weed, and watching Buffy, which turned out to be the best of all kinds of relationships.
I mean, that's a good life. It's a good life.
That was me at 19, was watching Buffy with this girl Summer.
Okay, well, there you go. What was Voyager doing? Well, they weren't on this week, but the closest episode was, speaking of gooing and male fantasy, it was Favorite Son.
Okay.
Nobody's favorite episode, except for possibly young Harry Kim. The Weekly World News headline, just better living through food, miracle cures, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
The problem with doing the Weekly World News headline gag is now that we've done a couple of years of it, they only have like 10 stories. They just do over and over and over and over again.
You know what I mean?
This was the blockbuster special. So I don't know how long this segment's going to last if they're just going to do the same 20 stories.
But Keith, the tasty cocktail that makes varicose veins disappear, I need to know.
Oh, well, you turn the page, I guess. You're going to find out. All right, let us turn the page and get further into the actual episode, which was directed by John T. Kretschmer, the first of 2 episodes and 2 of Voyager. It was written by the great Renee Echevarria, which means I hear it coming. Now, Keith, waste your time.
With what?
With trivial trivia.
Woo!
All right. So, look, sometimes when you do TV, you live your dream, you do your stuff, but you got to do some weird stuff, including Rene Auberjonois having to shave his entire upper body for this episode.
Manimal?
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody on the show with more nude scenes than Rene Auberjonois.
Oh yeah, when he was like a goo nude.
He was a good, and he was Venturian Man. It was a whole bunch of stuff. It's awkward. Why did they make him do it? I don't know. Bashir's Secret Agent holonovel, of course the James Bond parody, was purposely limited in its screen time by the writers, and also kept the homages to James Bond restrained after they were threatened with legal action by MGM following Our Man Bashir. Come on, guys. I mean MGM, get a life. Among the in-jokes listed as Arissa accesses the passenger manifest with her data part are Jerry Maguire, show me the money, either one or the other, written as a name, and elbow grease. Some of those were funny. Come on, guys, if you're going to put in Easter eggs, make them funny. The costume worn by Day Young was previously used for Young's portrayal of Hannah Bates on Next Gen, the Masterpiece Society. Oh, that's crazy. She wore her same costume?
Hey, if it's in storage, why not?
But it's the same actor in the same. I understand we're using the costume, but the same actor in the same costume as a different character? That's crazy. And later for Kayla Tirana on Enterprise, 2 days and 2 nights. So the writers of this episode originally planned for Odo to have a sexual relationship with Shallan Oroya early in the 5th season while he was still a humanoid. Remember when they were sort of setting him up? But they felt she wasn't right for him when she was introduced in Broken Link. So they altered their plans. By the time they got around to doing an Odo relationship story, however, he had regained his shape-shifting abilities. This was something that displeased Ronald D. Moore. He said, "I wish we'd done the show while Odo was still human. If he'd been human, the relationship with this woman would have carried a little bit more weight." All right. You know who carries weight in our hearts, in our lives, Mike?
Well, we've got the Hall of Famers, Keith. They, of course,
sure do.
carry the heaviest weights. You can see them here. They've donated $100 or more to the K&M Empire. But we've got the rank and file members as well, Keith. As our current politics would tell you, it doesn't matter how long you served or what you did in the service. Just service we appreciate. And that's not it. Hold on. We'd like to thank
your valor will never be stolen.
We'd like to thank our patrons, and they get a lot of fun stuff, but most importantly, they get their names read, and I'm going to do that right now. We've got Brian Kimball, Beersock, Peter Bank, Frank Rinch, Quarks Bar, Yanba, Ryan Chesley, Joshua Cronin, Merritt Neath, Andrew Hayes, Allen, and the mysterious Walter, and the whole family. Worf's big old boot shivs, Charles Babbage, Harry Pothead, Anton Thies, Carl Fisher, CRM Productions, Nikolai Ivanovich Lobachevsky, Delusions at Noon, YouTube Viewer, James Hubbard, Hibernation Pod, Miri, Brian from the Game Drive-By, Odo's Bucket, also, hold on, Kim Goss, our newest patron. Yes, Kim, welcome.
Welcome. I got up that slide.
Keith's going to do that, but I want to say your name. I'm going to say it again. Kim Goss, thank you so much for being a patron. Also, JD Meigs, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, CRM, Frank Grinch, Pat, Joshua Cronin, JD has something special coming up on the channel, Keith, that I may have been a part of. Yeah, you'll find out. Lutz Kremer, Wyatt Eldridge, not our channel, his channel, and Andreas. Thank you, everyone on this slide, and those who have donated in the past and are considering doing so in the future. You help offset our time. It's next to impossible to make any money on YouTube. All we're trying to do is carve out a little space in our lives to keep this stuff going, and we appreciate your help in us doing so.
Absolutely. And we owe you stuff. We're going to do stuff.
We're going to do stuff.
This now, I'm back from Chicago. We have time. We're going to make it happen. All right. So our guest stars this week include the aforementioned Day Young as Arissa, John Durbin as Trady, Nicholas Worth as Sorm, Randy Mulkey as the Idanian operative, and Brant Cotton as the Idanian. Yeah, all of those character names I never knew in the first place. What do you say? We go into our screening.
Hakuna Matata. What
Dude, I made that joke already.
Phrase. You did?
It's in the rundown.
Oh yeah, those guys are definitely Timon and Pumba.
Hilarious.
I'm glad. That's crazy that we thought the same thing. You're talking about the henchmen, right?
Yeah, of course.
They're also kind of the henchmen. I couldn't think of this last night, but something was on the tip of my tongue. It sort of follows the basic plot of Sister Act. They're the gangster guys who come after Sister Mary Clarence when she's hiding out at the convent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just true. Yeah, follows. All right, we'll get into it. All right, so let's begin in our teaser with an alien guy in a blue hood in his quarters when the doorbell chimes. He hides a gizmo in his sleeve when the door opens and two tough guy alien baddies come in and demand to know where it is. They have an exchange that ends with Hood Guy trying to shoot the goons, but they shoot him first, vaporizing him into a scorch mark on the carpet. And he says, Timon says, "Oops, I thought it was a stun." They decide to...
Nothing. What's the matter with you?
They decide to wait for the woman. Maybe she can lead us there. We don't know what the hell's going on. And looking back on it, it was the gun he put in his sleeve. But we don't know where the crystal is yet.
No, because they find the crystal, right? No, she's searching for the... No, she has the crystal. I don't know.
I'm still confused. I saw it like 3 times. Anyway, meanwhile, in Quark's bar, Bashir comes up with the latest chapter of his Bond holosuite program. They're all going to play parts in the game, including O'Brien, who is disappointed to be playing Falcon again.
See, this is what confused me, because I'm not really confused, but the first time I thought that they got jumbled. They didn't know they were playing the parts, right? But this time they are doing it on purpose.
Yes. Yeah. So
there was like a time warp. There was a MacGuffin that made them not sentient in their or having agency.
Yeah. Their bodies got beamed into the holosuite, and so they were not aware that they were themselves. But now they continue playing.
But Bashir liked it so much that he's just cast them in the same roles that they got shuffled into last time. That's right.
Yeah. Now they're LARPing.
He was like, "You were such a good bad guy last time. You're going to do Falcon this time." Okay.
Super fun. Mm-hmm. But of course, Odo is distracted. Even when he finds out that he gets the girl in the game, he pulls out and leaves.
Look how beautiful Odo's hands are, too. I've noticed that a couple times this episode.
Well, he does a lot of like beautiful hand work. Like he doesn't hold his hands normally, and actually, it's in the way that he has. Renee has this very specific Odo posture, which is very rigid and upright, and it doesn't really turn or move. His hands, interestingly, are usually relaxed, and so I think it's a specific Odo acting choice. We rarely see his hands because they're almost always behind his back, but when we do, there's some sort of an elegance to it, in a way that it makes it clear that Odo is always thinking about his appearance and always thinking about how things are situated, because he's choosing to make hands. So I think he arranges them in a very specific way. I said way more about that than you expected me to. So he goes and he finds a mysterious lady rebuffing Quark's attempt to get her to buy something.
Bullion!
Which, to be fair, isn't unreasonable, as she's taking up a seat in the bar. Mm-hmm. It seems fair that he'd ask her to buy something. And she points out a cheater at the Dabo table, and Quark runs off, which allows Odo to come up and have a femme fatale conversation with her. She's waiting for someone, and thought he was hitting on her due to his bedroom eyes. Odo is, of course, so thrown by this, he literally walks into a wall.
I bought it.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny, like, I identify with Odo so much whenever he's dealing with a woman that, like, I 100% could see myself doing that. Mm-hmm. So then we see that the blue guy baddies have been watching from afar at the bar, at the Star. So in Act 1, Kira is helping run inspections in the cargo bay and finds Odo staring at his own reflection, looking for those bedroom eyes. He tells the tale to Kira, who's intrigued, and is happy to wingman him. She also, however, says obliquely that she also thinks he has bedroom eyes. So he heads back to his office, only to discover that the mysterious lady, Orissa, has been arrested trying to break into the station's security files. She claims she was just trying to figure out where her friend was. But Odo notices that she has a data port in her neck, basically a USB drive. She's got the little plug in there, which allows her to communicate with computers directly. She mentions that while she was trying to break into the data, she was shocked by the security system, and Odo smugly points out that he designed it to do just that. Mike, I think the question everybody's asking is, if you could get a data port, would you?
It depends on what I can upload.
Or download.
Yeah, that's
I don't want to upload anything. I just want to download.
True. Although it turns out on my computer, if you try to put your USB-A port into my USB-C dongle, it zaps you.
Does it?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not a good sign.
No. Yeah.
Mike built his own computer, so grounding be damned.
Yeah.
So So he explains, that Odo does, that the missing guy that she was trying to meet, who's obviously now carpet goo, is helping her, or she explains that is the guy is helping her find her missing daughter. So Odo agrees to go to his quarters together, and they discover the carpet goo. So we've had a lot of discussions about vaporizing people with phasers and such, but this at least left some residue, and at least they ruined the carpet. So at this point in the show, like, are you interested? What's your feelings here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really following anything, but interested.
Yeah, well, it's... I think one of the fair criticisms of this story is that the mystery we're trying to solve
is a MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's a I think the reveal is interesting,
100%.
but all of the beats up to it just feel like filler, and like we don't actually care who these people are.
Yeah,
or what
spoiler
the things
alert.
Are.
The vibes are much stronger in the attempt at genre than they are in actually doing it well. Right?
I care about the emotional stakes here, but it's peas and carrots till we get to the reveal.
For me, up at this point, like the scene up through him meeting her at the bar, are so. First of all, the bait and switch. Like I really thought it was going to be a 007 episode because that's the way they set it up in the beginning.
Right.
And I wasn't disappointed that it wasn't when it began, but that was switch number 1. 2, it's very, like you said, femme fatale, what's his name? Sam Spade.
Film noir kind of
film
a thing.
Noir thing. And I thought we were going to go super heavy noir. Like, lean in. Give me the thing that Trek they've done before. Give me the color scheme. Give me the voiceover, the first person narration from Odo, but we don't get any of it. And then they start introducing some like very Total Recall type stuff, very sci-fi Edge Runner type of thing this early here, and they don't really go for that either until the very end, and even then it seems very kind of half-hearted. There's a lot of, we'll talk more about it when we sum it up, but at this point, yes, I'm interested.
So you want to feel old?
Sure.
So obviously doing a film noir episode is, referencing something from the past.
Yeah, like
and
50s, right? 57?
Yeah,
Maltese
exactly.
Falcon type of thing?
Yeah, so them referencing film noir would be like us today referencing an 80s thing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, back in the office in Act 2, they discuss. She denies having anything to do with it. He drops the charges of her trying to break into the computer and wishes her well, and she leaves, but not without a furtive glance. And later, we see her use the data port again to break into another data thing, and pulling up the name Tavid Rem. And in the stage directions, there's a little detail here that they didn't really do in the episode, but I would have liked to have seen. Is probably a just a technical thing. They couldn't afford it. It says we see 2 blinkies, in the show they call the little blinky things, on both pieces, and both pieces start to flash in unison. A faraway look comes over her eyes, as if she's now sightless. I would have loved to have seen her eyes go white or something.
Yeah.
To show that she's like, I'm hooked in now and I'm not seeing the world. This would have been a cool little detail to put in there. We then get a comedy beat of Quark closing up the bar and discovering he almost locked Morn in, of course. Then Orissa breaks into another door and is caught by Odo. And we have our little old-timey dialogue here. I didn't realize I'd tripped an alarm. You didn't. You're good. I still got caught. I've been following you. I didn't know. I'm good too. So did you find anything in Tavid's locker? Would you believe me if I said no? Actually, I'd have you strip searched. She says, well, that might be fun. But in the interest of saving time, she holds out a small data crystal. Okay, that explains where the crystal comes from. I thought that was, it is sort of arch, that dialogue, but I think it's good. It's satisfying.
Yeah, it further points out, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, cool. If you tell me, if you present it like this is what we're selling, I'm in. You just got to follow through.
Yeah, well, I think they sort of did. It does follow the structure of exactly
100%. My point that I'm going to make later is sorta isn't particularly satisfying.
Okay.
It sort of tastes like a hot dog. Okay, well, I wish it tasted like a hot dog the whole time, but
I can go for a hot dog right now.
that sounds good.
Anyway, we see the data crystal.
That's what she's saying in this scene.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're Odo, you could make the hot dog be whatever size and shape you care.
Dude, if you can do this with your hand, whatever he does, which I get, you don't need a hot dog, period.
We'll talk more about the hand of it all, but just think about it. Whoever your partner is,
whatever they want, baby.
If I could say, like, I can make it be exactly whatever pleases you, and it can be different every evening, that's a pretty good selling point if you're someone who likes that thing.
I could turn into a hawk.
Yeah, and and right now, all I can sell is I can turn into, okay, you know.
The only thing I ask is it's probably better for all of us if you turn the lights off.
Oh no, there's no light. I'm turning off the lights in the hallway.
I didn't even pay the bill. Yeah.
I'm turning off the power.
Yeah. I got a blindfold for you. Oh, that's
I only
kinky.
do it during the eclipse.
It's for your own good.
Anyway, so Odo interrogates her on the contents of the crystal. He says, you realize that it would have been a simple matter for me to have a doctor examine you to determine... Oh, she says, I'm looking for my daughter. He says, it's a simple matter for me to have the doctor examine you to determine if you'd ever been pregnant. She says, you keep threatening to have me stripped down and examinated. I'm trying not to read too much into that. She says she doesn't know what's on the crystal, but if she doesn't find out what's on it, she's dead. She says, I work for a man named Drain. I see you've heard of him. He's with the Orion Syndicate. If I'm not mistaken, he specializes in blackmail and extortion. Where do you fit into this organization? She says, I access computer systems and steal information for him. Government data, business plans, whatever he asks for. Odo says, I assume you're well paid. That's a dangerous line of work. Trigger the wrong security protocol and you could end up with permanent brain damage. I think about that from time to time, but there's not much I can do about it. You don't quit the Orion Syndicate unless they say you can. Mike, do you remember ever coming across the Orion Syndicate?
Yes. We were on a ship with Quark, I think, and Quark, we thought he was working with or somebody was like
Yes.
Somebody was a witness. Oh, yes, it was Quark and Odo once again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was a witness, not working with them.
Yeah. So, and do you know who the Orions? Well done, Mike.
Yes.
Seriously, applaud Mike, everybody. The Orions are the green people, and remember the action figure of the Orion slave girl, they say?
I do not. I just assumed that the Orions looked like the goons.
No. The Orions are the green guys. Well, I don't know if we ever see an Orion on Deep Space Nine, but we see them in lots of other shows. Anyway, so Orissa explains.
I got the slave girl.
There you go. That she was told the crystal contains information that would allow her to get free of the syndicate. And that she trusted him, Odo, but couldn't tell you, the person she was meeting, but couldn't say just why. But she knows that the Orion Syndicate wants to know what's on the crystal as much as she does. Odo decides to put her under protective custody, if you know what I mean, and investigate. Meanwhile, the Blue Goons are hiding in the cargo bay eating Chipotle. It's weird that they hide in the cargo bay when they're perfectly comfortable being seen in public at Quark's. Right? So
I just assumed they were like they were going to do a sabotage, but no, you're right. They are waiting.
They're hiding in the cargo bay, and this whole time they're like trying to find food and scavenging, that kind of stuff. But then they just walked into Quark's. If they're gonna walk into Quark's, they should just get quarters like a normal person. I feel like that's a wormhole for me.
Okay, I like it.
They of course discuss that they might have to kill her.
Cassidy Yates, anyone?
Cassidy Yates, lots of good branding. And they complain about the Hasperat burritos being too hot. And there's a couplet cut from the episode where the guy, they finish the scene in the actual episode with like, oh, I have to kill her, bummer. But in the script, they continue, oh, my mouth's on fire. Did you bring something to drink? My hands were full. Then they cut to commercial. I don't know if that's quite the same blow-off of an act. So in Act 3, Odo brings Arissa to his quarters by way of a fake beam-out of a dummy set of quarters. Clever, but also definitely the hot protectee protocol, as opposed to the normal protectee protocol.
He's like, oh, pay no mind to my weird sex chair over there. Just come on in. I got a futon, I got a cot, and I got a bucket. Your choice.
I mean, stayed in a Citizen M. I'm telling you, that's that's what that is. So, and also, hey, guess what? He didn't get rid of his bed after all. Remember, we had a discussion about getting rid of the bed? Well, it's back, or it never left. They discuss his gelatinous state and her dark past. Turns out she was a net girl, which I assume is a slightly more high-tech version of a cam girl. And so, here we learn Star Trek invented iPads, invented Zoom, and invented OnlyFans.
Virtual reality OnlyFans, right? So basically you OnlyFanned into their head?
Into their head, yeah. So I guess it's like it's a one-on-one. What do they call those? Is it
private chat or whatever?
Oh, a D&D, is that what they call it? I heard somebody referencing it a bunch of times, like, oh, you're gonna go play Dungeons and Dragons? That sounds awesome. And then, oh no, it's not what that is.
But here's like, as far as sex work goes, I always say the OnlyFans is actually, because you get to make all the rules, there's no actual physical contact. I'm not saying shady stuff can't happen and you can't, bad things can't come of it, but I think that it gives you much more agency in your small business or whatnot, and I feel like this is the same way. You're not actually having any physical contact with these dudes.
Okay, so peek behind the curtain. So a while back, I was chatting with a woman on Bumble, who I'm only mostly convinced wasn't a bot, but she was doing her PhD dissertation on OnlyFans, on how that sort of works. And basically, it's the way she described it was like it is both half of what you want it to be, like a safe place for sex work where you get to control your own content and control,
a breeding ground
what you're doing,
for wealthy pervs,
and half a dystopian hellscape.
Yeah.
And I was, and I'm sure it's all of that. Anyway,
Keith's like, you had me at dystopian hellscape.
That's what I was offering her. Anyway,
so how many months have you subscribed now?
Weirdly, I have never, I will say this, never once in my life paid a dime for adult content, because it's all available for free.
Yeah, that's damn sure. That's true.
No, that's not true. I think I bought a VHS in college once with my then girlfriend, and it came in like the big box. All right, we're learning way too much. Move forward. Anyway, where was? Okay, so she was a net girl, and this led her to work as a spy for Drame in the Orion Syndicate. And she says, I wanted out. I guess I'm finally going to get my wish. The only problem is, I'll be dead. Why am I crying? The dead don't cry. Odo tries to get her to testify against Drame. She could get immunity for her past crimes and start a new life. He says, I will take personal responsibility for your safety. I don't care how long it takes. If I have to ask for a leave of absence, I will. And she says, you do that for me? Why? He says, I've done things, and this I think is interesting.
Yes, this actually elevated it from just like pure genre trope to something.
Yeah.
And I like that they tied back to that episode a couple,
Yeah, and I think it informs a lot more of Odo's plot, his choices here. A lot, it's deeper than he's just horny, right? So he says, I've done things I'm not proud of. You worked for Drain, I worked for the Cardassians. But I never had the courage to walk away. You did. I admire that. And it's Odo for the first time admitting that he should have walked away. Because initially he sort of defended himself, like I was just trying to keep order in a difficult situation, and now I think he really acknowledges he should not have done
his
it.
culpability, which is pretty great.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the sexual tension is building. We cut to Bashir in the holosuite. We finally get a glimpse of James Bond, and he's riding in the back of a limo with his Bond girl when Odo knocks on the window.
Fun scene,
fun concept. The car is still in motion, but Odo enters. So obviously, we see a little behind the scenes of how many car scenes are filmed in Hollywood. They're just sort of there on a gimbal where they flash lights over it in the rain. And so we get to sort of break the fourth wall production a little bit through the use of the holosuite. And Odo must have entered ID clip to walk through the holosuite. Remember that?
Yep.
From Doom?
No clip, they call it, yeah.
No clip.
Yeah.
What was ID? ID was something.
No clip is what it's in most video games, where you just kind of walk through the walls and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that was more games. Yeah. Mine was, I used that for Doom.
Now, I apologize. One of our reviewers last night, and I can't remember who, and I can't remember the specifics, really disliked this scene particularly. It took them way out of it. Maybe it's Bashir's dialogue is a little, I guess you could consider it's a little schlocky or whatnot. But I actually dug the scene, and I thought it was helpful. I think, one of the big parts of this episode is just how furtive the rumor mill and the gossip train on Deep Space Nine is.
It's a small station.
Yeah, and I think that it's cool that Bashir's kind of got Odo's back here, and he
I think
says
so
much.
too.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. So Bashir is surprised to find out that Odo is here for woman advice. Apparently, everybody already knows about the bedroom eyes lady, and Odo is embarrassed. Bashir says, if people are talking, it's because they care. You put on a good front, but anyone who really knows you can see that you're lonely. If you're interested in this woman, you have to let her know. Odo says, I can't. Why not? What if she, and Bashir gets it, rejects you? She might, but you can't go through life trying to avoid having your heart broken. If you do, it'll break from loneliness anyway. So you might as well take a chance. If you don't, she'll move on and you'll never know what you might have had. And living with that would be worse than having a broken heart. Believe me. Bashir has grown wiser, as well as being a secret genius. I like that advice. I think it's great advice.
Yeah.
And I like Bashir's sort of growing up a little bit and understanding that. I like that scene, frankly. And of course, they're interrupted by O'Brien as Falcon, who found them by the side of the road. And his breaking character and saying, hi, Odo, is hilarious.
Great beat.
I thought that was, and I think Column's take on it was really funny. So they talk for a bit, but of course, so Odo goes back to Orissa, apparently in the middle of the night. They talk for a bit, but of course it is just the prelude to the kiss. Renee does such a good job in the scene of finding ways to show vulnerability without moving or doing anything under all of that makeup. With said bedroom eyes, I think he does some really excellent work there. So in Act 4, do we have an alarm sound anywhere on the on your board there?
I can give you this.
Give. Okay, I was gonna go with an awooga, but that'll work fine too, because folks, Odo has gone to the bone zone. That's not how it went. It sounds like it went pretty well.
Well, trombone, as close as I got.
It wasn't sad. It was a happy trombone. So this is a big moment for Odo. And he and Orissa chat in post-coital bliss. Yeah, great. That was worth being demonetized. So Odo says, I've never been able to let my guard down with a woman until now. I was wondering what makes you different. She says, wait a minute, are you saying you've never been with anyone before? Not a humanoid. Once, on my home world, I had an experience that you might consider sexual. But this is his first time with a humanoid. And apparently...
And her facial take when she finds that out is actually brilliant.
She's great.
She does a take that is like... it's like a little bit of shock. It's a little bit of like, oh, that's a lot of responsibility. But it's good.
Yeah. I mean, and... Yeah, I mean, that's got to... I mean, I'm sure... Also probably relief that she's finding out now and not before. So that didn't make it weird. Anyway, he apparently did great in his first time, or she's a really good liar from all the years of sex work. Who knows? But of course, she's still nervous about the Orion Syndicate. But she asks, hey, what's changeling sex like? And he demonstrates by, gooing hands together. And we know that from the Ryzian episode in the 90s, in 90s Trek, hands are erogenous zones, and they return to the bone zone.
Yeah, it's like reflexology, maybe.
I don't know what's happening there, but remember, like at Lita, and like doing this was like the hottest thing ever.
I did read a thing, not from the companion, Keith. I asked for spoiler-free like production notes from ChatGPT, and it's been really good. Keith, come on! I want to know some things.
You're not allowed to know things.
I'm allowed to know things. What do you don't? You can't. Don't Orion Syndicate me. Apparently, they were going to do a whole goo engulfing sex thing with him, but it wasn't because of the. It wasn't because of the lack of the technology to do it. Ronald said, it can't possibly be as beautiful as it is in my imagination, and so we're not going to do it. And I'm like, how hard do we think about this? How beautiful was it, Ronald D.
I mean, it's true. It starts to become like the animated squid sex. It's just it like swallows her. It doesn't sounds weird.
Literally no idea what you're talking about.
No, like Japanimation where they did like the whole thing. It's like a whole genre. Anyway, how do you of all people, you have seen things I wouldn't even want to conceive of.
Animated squid porn, Keith?
It's a whole thing.
We'll see you later, folks. Take care.
So on Ops, Dax and Kira gossip about Odo's conquests, while Worf judges them for talking out of school. Dax is delighted for Odo, and Kira seems somewhat conflicted.
Yeah.
Then, Sisko joins in on the fun, before, of course, Odo enters, and they can all tell that something is up. Meanwhile,
No
Orissa...
donuts.
No donuts, Odo! What the hell? Do you not know any of the rules? But it is cute how happy everybody is for Odo, because it is a little family there. And they're all adults, we get it.
Yeah, come on.
Meanwhile, however, Orissa accesses the computer in a suspicious fashion once again, and there's a cut scene here where we actually find out what she's doing. We see the words from Drame on the computer saying, "Let's talk," and Orissa transmits an identification code, thus confirming it. I don't know why we didn't see that. I guess we find out what happened immediately after, because back in the cargo bay, the blue baddies discuss. And he says, I talked to Drame. The woman asked to make a deal. She gives us the crystal, and Drame lets her go. So we don't have to kill her? Don't be stupid. As soon as she got the crystal, so we've got the crystal, she dies, of course. There is then a kind of long omitted scene in the script of Dax, O'Brien, and Orissa trying to get the data off the crystal, and Dax trying to get gossip from Orissa. But reading the scene, not really much happens, and so I think it's a good cut to give time and space for some more important stuff. But in Odo's office, another Blue Hood alien guy, an Idanian, comes in and asks if Orisa is safe. And he finally explains what's happening. He says she's not who she seems to be. She's an intelligence agent with my government. She was sent to infiltrate Drame's organization. Odo, of course, is stunned. That's impossible. She would have told me. And he says she doesn't know. We gave her a new identity before we sent her in. All of her previous memories were removed and stored on the data crystal.
So it's like Total Recall meets Eternal Sunshine.
Yes. Yes, it's sort of the we added stuff and removed the others part. Now, of course, all of this is predicated on storing her entire, we'll get to it, but what's on the data crystal is her previous memories.
Why don't they keep it in like a vault somewhere?
The idea is the guy she was going to meet was going to give her the crystal and plug the USB in and give her memories back. But you think maybe they'd have a backup on that somewhere?
Right.
Like on a flash drive?
Yeah.
But I don't know. MacGuffin.
But it wasn't that they needed that crystal that was out there, because if Tane got it, then, or Taint, whatever. Drame,
then he would know that she was a spy.
Yeah. Maybe they could reverse engineer and find the other spy. I don't know.
Yeah. Like you don't want that data getting away, but it's weird that they wouldn't have a backup. Anyway, so we find out that the crystal is Orisa, and then we find out that she has gone to the cargo bay to meet up with Simba and Timon. Or Timon and Pumba.
Yeah.
So in Act 5, Orisa and Laurel do the typical I have no weapons exchange dialogue while Hardy waits for the barrel behind the barrels to zap her. So she gives the crystal, then Hardy, of course, steps forward with a phaser from the exact same position. Like, why not come from a different angle if she runs?
Why not just be behind her and just shoot her from the back? I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
If you're a bad guy, yeah.
And like, there's a lot. This is where, like, I think the scene sort of breaks down, because this whole sequence is.
Well, not only that, but come on, you're supposed to be a super high intelligence, like, officer.
You didn't know this was coming?
You didn't expect him to have a backup guy?
This is a meet in public, period, situation.
Or bring Odo with you. Odo's abreast of what's happening.
There's so many. Well, Odo doesn't know that she's decided to make a deal. So she's trying to make this deal off the books. But anyway, then the doors all around the room open one at a time, distracting them for long enough for Odo to de-goo from the ceiling and very awkwardly fight off the bad guys one by one.
Why does he shoot like goo spears or whatever? He just like does a weird Randy Savage elbow drop.
Yeah, exactly. They never use Odo's goo spear. Like, he can do so many different things. And it's weird that money, always money. Mm-hmm. But, like, there's such a more interesting way to do this. So Odo fights the guys one by one, while the guy with the phaser, powerful enough to vaporize that dude, watches dumbly for his turn to be palm punched.
It's bad. It's bad.
So he takes out the bad guys, and later they begin the memory transfer. Cisco says, how long was she undercover? And the guy says she volunteered for a mission 2 years ago. After we altered her memories, we placed her on Phinia. She woke up the next morning believing she was a different person, with no memory of her.
Did she sign off on mind banging a whole bunch of dudes?
I think she signed off on whatever it took to get the job done. She's an intelligence agent.
Okay, you're right.
So, and Cisco says, with no memory of her former life as an intelligence agent, that was crucial to the plan. Drain employs telepaths to scan everyone who works for him. It was the only way to get past them. Smart. Odo is pissed that they put her at so much risk, but that was kind of her choice. Later, Orisa, the real one, now in the same type of blue hood, as the same type of blue hood alien, arrives in Odo's quarters.
What's interesting is that they wiped her memory, but now that her memory's back, she keeps both sets.
Well, I made a note of that as well.
But because they would need her in order to use her as a witness, right?
Exactly. Because they would need... Right, she can't be a witness if she doesn't remember.
Even though theoretically they could just download that into the chip.
Well, but I think like in court it's much more...
Yeah, it's true.
Especially
in this age of deep fakes,
Yeah, well, exactly. It's just like data is not the same thing as testimony. So, she arrives in Odo's quarters, and we find out that not only is she this other person, but that she's married. But she remembers everything. And she says, "I'm so sorry. Don't be, you didn't know. It's not your fault I fell in love with a woman who never really existed." And she says she did exist. She was real. And she loved you. And in a way, she still does. And I wrote down they're both giving terrific performances here. They embrace, and Odo asks if he'll ever see her again, but they both know they won't.
And what's great about this scene from Aubergenois and the way it's written is that, and most of us lived long enough to have experiences where you feel one way very strongly, but you rationally understand that your feelings are not warranted, right? Like, he's clearly hurt and upset and all kinds of things, but rationally, like he even says, "I know it's not your fault, you didn't make this, it wasn't blah, 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 blah." Yeah. But it doesn't mean you don't feel that way, right? Those two things can coexist, and that's a difficult thing to portray, and I think he does it well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So she leaves, and Odo is alone once again. And in the script, they just say... off Odo ... meaning I think they let Renee just do whatever he was going to do when she walked out, and we see him sort of turn his back and look out the window. And I think just a great final scene, great performance from both of them. Is it a scene we've seen a bunch, like we've seen this in any number of different things? Yes, but I thought it was really, really well handled. All right, so what do you say we go into our after show and talk through it all?
Nailed it. Nice. Good warm up.
Woo! All right. So, Mike, a simple investigation. Were there any wormholes?
There's a bunch. I'm sure we could really poke some holes into the whole sort of what the actual is happening. The systematic clearance of it all. Like, what was she? They're trying to infiltrate his thing, and what her deals were with the crystal, where the crystal originate. I'm sure you could really pick that apart. It's not that important to me. You brought up a wormhole at the very beginning. I think we start there. I'm going to pass it off to you because I didn't pay that close attention.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest wormhole is kind of technological. Like, honestly, the plan that they had holds up to me. Right? Erase her memory, put a different experience on her, send her in. She's a mole. She doesn't even know is a mole. Then extract her, put her memory back in, and then we have all of this data. Right? I think that tracks to me. That makes sense. The Orion Syndicate being what they are, why you would do that, how you would do this. So that all makes sense to me. The data crystal of it all, why you only have one copy. I think the plan to extract her and bring her to Deep Space Nine and do the rebraining, that makes sense. Like, Deep Space Nine, it's like a hub. It would, it all sort of makes sense. It's weird that they don't have a backup of the data crystal. Whatever 90s technology it needed to be this singular MacGuffin, and also, I don't know, we were thinking about data, so I don't know what the plan was there. But the only other major wormhole to me is we set up over and over again how scary and powerful the Orion Syndicate is, how incredibly sophisticated and competent. And then you got the two comedic dum-dums supposedly saving the day for the Orion Syndicate. The sort of, and they were intentionally dum-dums.
Yes.
right? And they're played sort of for laughs. And so you don't really have the peril. I mean, yeah, we see them vaporize a guy, and yet they're still not threatening. And so, like, why would the Orion Syndicate hire, Timon and Pumba, or whatever their names are, to be their baddies? But other than that, I don't have a gigantic set of wormholes here.
All right, let's go best moment.
Yeah.
Maybe. Where's best moment? There we go.
There it is.
I mean, Renee is always so good. But I think we're going to highlight that last scene because it's a very... This episode is sort of paint by numbers and it's very beat to beat. But like I said, what's tough to portray is the two things. I mean, a petulant Odo could be just upset at her and pissed off at her and mad that the whole universe is not going his way. But you know that the interest isn't going to last. The love interest isn't going to stay. So that him just portraying the empathy and the understanding and the gravity of the situation without having like a period at the end of this sentence type performance and the faith they had in him to do it by what you said from the script, I thought was really interesting. So I think that last scene for me is the best moment.
Yeah, I think it is for me too. But just for the sake of being different, I'm gonna highlight something like completely off the radar here, and that is Nana's performance of Kira's experience of this. Right? She's Odo's best friend, but we know that Odo has been in love with her. Mm-hmm. And so we're clocking how she's going to react to Odo going to Bone Zone with somebody else. And I don't think there's nothing in the script that really tells her, Nana, how to react to this. Right? And I think the choices that she makes in the nonverbal reaction to Odo's thing has a layer of complexity that I think is very interesting and very compelling. And I wonder if that is Nana choosing to play it a little bit more ambivalent about it. Mm-hmm. We don't know why she's ambivalent, but she's invested in a way that goes beyond gossip.
Yeah, there's I'm gonna middle school this, but because it is an interesting color, right?
We middle school everything.
Yeah,
Mike.
That's true. So I remember a very specific example of friend zoning I was in, right? I definitely was into this girl.
I can remember like 30.
Yeah, but this one is place here. I was into this girl, Kelly was her name, and she definitely knew how I felt, mm-hmm. but also clearly did not reciprocate because she would use me to talk about the boys she was, blah, 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 that stuff. Typical friend zone, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But when things started going a different way for me later in high school, when we got into high school, I could sense a shift in her, and it wasn't your typical...
Because you were a famous ska band star.
It wasn't your typical jealousy, because she didn't feel that way about me. But she was losing that guaranteed ear, right? That guaranteed person who's going to give all the attention and listen and treat her and keep her on a pedestal where she could get an elevated amount of attention and that...
The power dynamic shifted.
Yes. And knowing that you're losing that, I think makes you feel a way. Now, and I think that's what's happening with Kira here. I don't think she does love Oda in her way, but she knows there's something special about the relationship she had with him, and she had that leverage, and now she doesn't. Or it's not exclusive, I should say.
Right. She is not the only woman in his life now. Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting observation. I think there's some truth to that. Yeah, well, it's interesting when the power dynamics in a relationship shifts, whether it's a romantic one or a friend zone or just two buddies.
And that's not necessarily to say there's anything, I'm not trying to base that on ego. That might not be, in my situation or in Kira's situation, it might not be that I think it comes from a place of insecurity, right? Where you might convince yourself, well, maybe we are only as close as we have been because he felt that way about me.
Because of the power dynamic.
And I might lose that friendship now because I don't have that.
Yeah, and even if it's not jealousy or envy, because we've had this happen where somebody who's been your buddy, your Xbox buddy, becomes famous.
Yeah.
Right? And even if they're not doing anything different, you're not doing anything different, and you don't like want what they have or whatever, it's just different all of a sudden.
Yep.
And it's whether it's a power dynamic or just something about the dynamic changes. So anyway, interesting stuff. So let's go do some stem bolts, shall we?
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
So I have a great analogy for how I feel about this. So what's the wonderful guest actress's name again? Something Young?
Is
Dae Young.
Dae Young, yes.
So Dae Young here is a great example of how I feel about the episode. She clearly got the notes in her read through when they sent her the script. She booked the gig. She's all about it. And she's like, oh, I know what they want. They're going noir. They're going film noir meets cyberpunk. So she gives every line read like she is directly out of a black and white Sam Spade novel, right? The issue is that nobody else really plays the episode that way. Like, not even Rene Auberjois, where he delivers those lines when he's given them, but he's not playing genre. Whereas I feel like she kind of is, because I think I think she feels like she's in a different episode sometimes than everybody else, just by her delivery and the way she's performing, the way she carries herself. I don't think that's a limitation of her as an actress. I think it's the way she read the script and was like, oh, that's what this is. That's how I feel about the episode as a whole. I feel like it very much wears the clothing of, this is very much a genre episode, like the outline of it. But it never really goes for it, right? The netrunnery sort of stuff is all kind of, muddy, and it's not very specific. And then the Donnie Briscoe of it at the very end, where she's been undercover, it's sort of real quick, and at the end, it just never sort of fills in the colors, right? And thus feels a little meh, right? The slow pacing could work if the investigation was slowly uncovering things as we went, but you never really give too many craps. And one of the reasons you don't give too many craps is because the central sort of romance of it, I think, is very effective. And I think it works for me. They don't have any real physical chemistry, but I like the way that they build the sort of chemistry through shared investigatory prowess and competence and flirty flirt. And Odo's got a little bit of game, and she's got a lot of game, and so there's a lot of it's compelling. And then seeing Odo, like you said, play his sort of insecurities, but also overcoming them and taking a leap and getting some great buddy advice from it. A lot of it works. It works a lot. And I think there's so much pathos in that last scene that all of it sort of worked for me. Even though I think a lot of people probably don't feel that way. They didn't in the chat, at least. But I did. I found it very compelling. All the other stuff, the Timon and Pumba of it, their sort of sheer incompetence level and the way why would you send those two goons if it's important?
Right.
None of it makes any sense. The crystal of it all doesn't really make a lot of sense. The MacGuffin kind of sucked, But that said, there's sort of some gems in this episode. I don't think it's tossed away. Now, in the context of, I think it suffers in the context of a season 5 that has been sort of banger after banger after banger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that said, this does not read as a bad episode to me. I kind of enjoyed myself. However, I have to grade it on the curve of where we've been. And so I can't give it more than, I think, 70 self-sealing stem bolts. But I still think that's pretty good. That 70's not bad, man. That's like a solid C.
Yeah. It's a very interesting episode that I think is inconsistent in its quality. And I think in terms of her performance, that the feeling like she was in a film noir and everybody else wasn't didn't bother me as much, because
It didn't really bother me. It just was noticeable.
Yeah, I because I take it this way, right? Up until there's a turn at some point, she's not flirting with Odo. She's pretending to flirt with Odo. She's playing a character up until a certain point, and it's a little arch and it's a little manufactured, and you could ascribe that to the actress playing a film noir. I ascribe it to the character as somebody who is always playing a part with men in her sex work life. And so,
then I don't feel like the turn when she starts to be really interested in him is apparent enough, if that's the case.
It's gradual, but I think she, as the character, would hide that turn well. For lots of different, she's hiding 10 different level, because she's she's an actress playing a character, and the character is playing another character, and that character is playing a third character to play, to navigate this situation where she's undercover. She's like undercover in 6 different ways. And so I sort of took it, I bought her performance there as an in-character thing as opposed to an actor doing a thing. So that didn't bother me at all. I thought that her performance was good, and it didn't pull me out. I think sort of like we've said enough, right? All of the gobbledygook around their relationship beats felt a little undercooked, felt a little paint by numbers, felt a little lazy just could have used all right, this is the structure, now let's find a way to make that interesting. And they didn't really. But the emotional beats for Odo. Why is this episode important? Why would I not skip this episode? Because it's a really important story for Odo, in Odo's development. Obviously, losing your virginity is a big development for everybody, right? And for Odo particularly, because he's sort of a late bloomer, and being so restricted in his life for him to have this as part of his experience. It's really important for the character. And I'm really happy. I think everybody, all these like Dax and Cisco and O'Brien and Bashir, their joy for Odo is all of our joy for Odo.
Yeah.
And yes, he's going to get his heart broken, but you know what? Getting your heart broken after your first time, that's part of the story. It's part of our journey too, right? And it's good for him, and he's developing and growing. And so I like that for him. So, honestly, the title gives it away. A simple investigation. Yeah, the investigation is simple and not interesting.
Yeah, right.
Right. But but for Odo's story, I think it is good. And it was nice to at least reference the James Bond stuff. I thought breaking into the Hollow Suite bit, I thought that was funny. So for me, I'm gonna give it 81 self-stealing stem balls. Now I know the internet hates this episode.
That was the vibes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So on IMDb, it's a 6.6, which gives it's 149 out of 173 episodes. So bottom 15% or so. And I disagree. And I think it might also be grading it on a curve. This would be a very good season 2 episode.
Do you know what I thought the one of the better science fiction kind of things it does, but it does it so quickly, and it's said as it's not said until the very last act, and it's only said in exposition rather than shown, is how they guided her back, right? They planted her this new identity, but they put this real thing where they're like, she'll only trust this one guy. So when he says, come meet me on DS9, she's compelled to come and meet him. That's how they were going to extract her. I thought that's such a cool sci-fi bit. It reminded me of The Naked Gun, where they have the Manchurian Candidate thing where they put him in the Empire or whatever. I thought that was such a cool science fiction bit. It's sad that all those fun little things get lost in the sort of bland trappings of the episode.
Yes, they're bland trappings. That's right. But I'm just so happy for Odo.
Man.
Get to that bone zone.
Yeah.
I'm living through you, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So Anyway, there it is. Next week we'll be
Keith,
discussing.
What if those ears that you purchased that are sitting there back there on that shelf were the ears that were in use when he was bone zoning? You don't know? Could be.
It could be. I don't know what episode it's from, but it's right there, folks. Are those Bone Zone ears? Who knows? I hope not. I deeply hope not.
They were sticky. Should we go?
I mean, do we know where Odo Goose from? Who knows?
They cut that scene.
They didn't shoot at his ears like a whistle.
It's time to go. Too long.
Business as usual next week. Thank you so much for watching Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. You know my spiel. Bye. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM. I am a very diligent hand cream person. I have the hands of a 12-year-old girl, but
Hakuna Matata. Ta-ta.